Uh, this is part 3 of the Lord's Prayer. And what are you saying? Now, one of the things I just wanted to bring up again um, for us to remember is that the Bible was written to and for the Semitic people of the ancient Near East. Now, what that means, what that means is that we can't take everything in the Bible literally, okay, and um, and we have to look at it from within the culture of the time, which was the culture that Jesus was in. Okay. And so I think, I mean, it plays a role no matter what you're reading and no matter what part of this prayer we're talking about. But somehow I put it in here for tonight because I thought it was a bit more relevant uh, tonight for what we're going to talk about. So, and we'll just go back to the beginning so that we set the stage again. Remember the word slotha in Aramaic means to tune in or to set a trap. And so you set your mind like a trap and wait patiently to catch the thoughts of God. And so in praying, now not just the Lord's Prayer, but in praying in general, it's more important to listen to the voice of God than to repeat words and tell God what he should do and what he has not done, which, which we do because that's kind of been our understanding. And then the Lord's Prayer encompasses the heart of Jesus' teachings. And every part of this prayer, and I've done some of it from the other parts that we've studied, it can all be wrapped up in and related to Jesus' teachings. And like I say, I've done some of it, but it's it's really it's just interesting to me uh, how this really does uh, uh, encompass Jesus' teachings. And when we say it, we've got to be aware of Jesus' teachings because um, the main teaching from Jesus is that the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, the counsel of God is here now and available to all of us. So it becomes more interesting every time we do this Lord's Prayer because it does so much relate to the entire Jesus mission. Okay. So far we have done Awun Dwashmayan et Kadashmak, our Father who is everywhere, holy be your name. Let your kingdom counsel come, let your wish be done. And Akana Dwashmaya Apara, as in heaven, so on earth. All right, so we're moving on. So we move on tonight to give us bread for our needs from day to day. Haulam Lachma, Tunkanin Yalmana. Okay, there's something missing in the translation, but just forgive me and we'll move on. So give us bread for our needs from day to day. Daily bread does not mean just bread, but where it comes from. You have to remember who was Jesus talking to. Basically, the apostles is who he was um, instructing that day about praying in the Lord's Prayer. And of course, when he spoke to the people of the time, and he spoke to the apostles, he spoke to them in language that they could understand, and according to their culture. So Easterners bake bread and cook food from day to day, every day. God is a part of every process. When bread is sacred, when it's baked, they always call on God. And in addition, bread and food are shared and given to the poor and strangers. All right. Um, they plan from harvest to harvest, and they seldom worry about future needs. Now, give us this day our give us bread for our needs from day to day. Um, we okay. We but when we say this, I don't know that we really think about it, but um, but it's God giving us our needs from day to day, because remember remember God knows our needs, and um and he will provide. That's the kind of faith that the people back then had. Well, most of the people, especially the poor people. All right. And so they had no fear about what they would eat, when they will eat, and whatnot, because they were a simple people, and they just had faith that God would provide. And so this is kind of hard for us to understand in our society today. But I have I'm going to jump ahead before we read that last one. Um, I had to go to this passage in Luke, um, because what Dr. Lamson was doing here is saying, okay, they had the simple faith that they would have food to meet their needs from day to day. But there were, as there are in every society, the greedy, um, the usually they of course were the more wealthy, and so greedy persons, fearing of hard times, store up food supplies, and they did not share with the poor. Um, I just see this played out in my mind so often. Um, and so Jesus told a parable. Now remember, this is a parable, all right? Not something that actually happened, but something that he put forth to the minds of the people who were listening to him, because they would know exactly what they were talking about. But I just really like this parable. So we go to Luke 12:16-19. Then he told them a parable. The land of a rich man brought him a great many crops. And he reasoned within himself, saying, what shall I do? For I have no place to gather my crops. So he said, I will do this. I will tear down my barns and rebuild them and enlarge them and gather there all my wheat and my good things. and I will say to myself, soul, you have many good things stored up for many years. Rest, eat, drink, and be happy. All is well. I don't have to worry about anything. And that just sounds so familiar to me. However, Jesus said, but God, this is part of the parable though, but God said to him, oh, you short sighted man, this very night your life will be demanded of you. And these things which you have prepared, to whom will they be left? Such is he who lays up treasures for himself and is not rich in the things of God. And one of the things of God, of course, was sharing with the poor. So now, when you read this, you think, no, wait a minute, in our time, we have IRAs and we save and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's okay. And this does not mean that we should not provide for tomorrow, but that we should not accumulate wealth with a consciousness of fear. And this might be a little difficult to understand, but I myself have experienced, especially over the last year, on and off, the fear of, well, might not have enough money to live, for the rest of my time. But we have to go back to this prayer. Give us bread for our needs from day to day, or if traditionally you say it, give us this day our daily bread. And that is when you're praying, that's a form of faith. And so that's something to keep in mind, as you were praying it. And of course, the other thing, it's not that you should fear, but what but what happens, you start putting away stuff, and then you don't share it, you don't with other people. And certainly in our country today, we certainly have that. We have people with billions and billions of dollars, and um, and then we have billions of people out on the street and whatnot. So I know there's a big argument and all that, but that's what this says. Have faith. God will provide needs from day to day, no matter what. Okay. And another thing that Dr. Lamsa introduced here that hasn't really been taught that much is daily bread does not always mean just bread and butter, but wisdom and spiritual understanding. And of course, we go to the verse about the bread of life in John 6:35. And Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life, the wisdom. Okay, wisdom. He who comes to me and gains and benefits from my wisdom, practices my teachings, and he who believes in me shall never thirst. So the two fit together. And when we pray for bread, but God gives us wisdom and understanding, and these in turn are turned into daily bread. I really, I kind of like that. Again, this is Dr. Lamsa. Almost all of this is Dr. Lamsa. And so just an interesting aspect of this. So And he says, our prayers for bread may be answered through good contacts, beautiful friendship, guidance, health, and other blessings in harmony with God's desires and his will. So I really enjoyed reading that from Dr. Lumsa. It puts us puts a slightly different perspective on things. Okay, now we move on to forgiveness. And Washwoklan Haubain A Canada Hanan Shwakan Lahayawe. Forgive us our offenses as we forgive our offenders. I think that this is many times misunderstood. So let's talk about what it means. And here are the scriptures. Okay, in Matthew 6:12 is the fourth, and forgive us our offenses as we have forgiven our offenders. Okay, and then I skipped because at the end of the prayer, Matthew 6, where it's 14 and 15. Okay, it says, and or if you forgive men their faults, your Father in heaven will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive men, neither will your Father forgive even your faults. Now, there's something about this passage right here. Number one, okay, this is not something that Jesus said. This was put in there by a scribe. It was added later as to, and that was his understanding. But but we're going to talk about this is not the vengeful mighty God. It says, no, I will not forgive you. No, that's not what it's all about. So let's look at what it's really saying. And for this, we go to the culture, okay? And in that culture of the time, people had to forgive one another before they could participate in communion. And so if we go to Matthew 5:23 to 24, if it should happen, therefore, that while you are presenting your offering upon the altar, and right there you remember that your brother has any grievance against you, leave your offering there upon the altar, and first go and make peace with your brother, and then come back and present your offering. Now, a lot of people don't think about this as forgiveness, but of course it is. And it's just because they don't read the whole passage and get the whole picture. But but that was their thing. You can't offer to God while you're harboring this grievance against somebody. So that's the first cultural thing. And then the second cultural thing, you may have heard, and I believe in some denominations, even nowadays, they say, forgive us our debts as we have forgiven our debtors. Well, that it's not wrong. Of course, there is no wrong and no right, but culturally, where this comes from is Deuteronomy 15:1-2. At the end of every 7 years, you shall make a release. And this is the manner of the release. Every creditor shall release any debt which his neighbor owes him. He shall not exact it of his neighbor or of his brother, because it is called the year of the Lord's release. Just a comment about this. If any of you know about bankruptcy laws, um, bankruptcy status lasts for 7 years, and that's all. That's it. It all comes from the Bible. Um, so just an interesting thing. So, uh, so that is what was expected, of those people if they were to receive um, forgiveness from God. And of course, if they didn't, well, we're going to talk about that. Okay. And once again, we go to a um, really significant thing when it comes to forgiveness. Uh, Matthew 5:43. You have heard it is said, be kind to your friend and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies, bless anyone who curses you, do good to anyone who hates you, and pray for those who carry you away by force and persecute you. And this is all part of this. Forgive us our offenses as we have forgiven our offenses. Um, that should be offenders. Sorry about that. Um, and so let's consider this. I know we always have a problem when we talk about loving our enemies, but when, okay, by forgiving your enemy, we unload the hatred that has accumulated in our own heart. All right. Now I've got so we're going to just kind of go over these statements from Dr. Lanza and then try to, try to pull this together. So in forgiving, one must not judge people by their acts, but by their inner soul. This is, I mean, we could go on and pull in lots of things according to this, and we will see that um, people will, okay, they will judge the behavior of someone, and then they'll say, well, I forgive them, but in their own heart they don't. And when you look by their inner soul, remember there's good in everybody. Everyone is made in the image and likeness of God, and so there is good that's in there. um that's but maybe it's not coming out, but we are responsible to look at that good in people, and not just judge them by what they do. All right. If you forgive, release someone who has offended you, you are clearing the channel for God's love and guidance to come through. If you are harboring resentment, hate, unforgiveness, you are blocking the channel of guidance, love, and forgiveness coming from God. God cannot forgive you if your channel is blocked. All right, now we have some more, and then hopefully we're going to talk about this. Okay, by forgiving others who have wronged us, we let God act to forgive us. If you harbor hate, resentment, etc. in your heart, there is no room for forgiveness. You must forgive yourself. Even if you say you have forgiven someone, if you are feeling guilt, there's also no room for forgiveness. Now, I'm just going to go back to those. Okay, I just want to go back to these verses here, Matthew 6:15, because, all right, it says, if you forgive men their faults, then the Father in heaven will also forgive you. But this is the one that's misunderstood. But if you do not forgive men, I mean, it sounds like God is he's just not going to forgive you, and um, and when when we really when we really look at this and take it to heart, some people just feel that God will never forgive them because this is such a strong statement, which Jesus didn't say. All right. So what it's really saying is, if you have if you have anger or hatred or resentment uh, towards anyone or whatnot, there's no room. God, how can God's love enter your heart, which is how you are forgiven, when there's no room? Um, you're still you're still resenting or hating or whatnot. Even if you have said, I forgive so and so, if you still have that in your heart, that's why God can't forgive you. It's not that he's, God says, I'm not gonna forgive you because you didn't forgive it. No, it's not like that. And so that is terribly misunderstood for the most part. And so you must forgive yourself. Um, and we just read that even if you're feeling guilt, there's just no room for forgiveness. So God will provide for our needs and knows our needs at all times. Um, it's kind of a summation of what we've been talking about, but we really need to keep that in mind. Um, and especially, if they give us this day or daily, keep in mind that God knows our needs, and technically we don't even have to ask him. Okay, but we do, and that's okay. But he knows, and the other reason, the other thing behind this is when you're praying, okay, you might ask God, um, well, we'll take a job. You want to get a job as an artist, let's just say, or and because you've had some other jobs and that's what you really want. All right, and you pray, all right, well, and it doesn't happen right away. Um, might not ever happen, but other other jobs, another job or jobs might surface because you're praying for something that God says, no, wait, this is not right for you. All right. And so that's why when you pray, you have to wait. I mean, you have to sometimes it might be immediate, but but many times, you have to wait. And that's the reason why you don't pray specifically for material things, so to speak, because the material thing that you're asking for may not be what God thinks you need. And so when you do that all the time, then you get really disgruntled with the prayer process, because I prayed for a red pair of shoes and I got these crummy black shoes, and then then the confidence and the prayers goes out the window. And then of course, as we release our resentment and forgive, then we are automatically forgiven by God. So once again, we have a tendency to intellectualize this all of this, because that's the world we live in. But um, but if you, if you are, that's what you do. You resent somebody else. I mean, you forgive, and that's your life. And you look at people, and you look at the good in people. Well, you don't have to be worried about being forgiven by God, because it's automatic, as long as your heart is in the right place. As long as your heart isn't filled up with resentment and hatred and nastiness and whatnot, then it's automatic, and you don't have to worry about it. So, all right, that's kind of a summation, and I hope that we can talk about this uh, tonight. And again, we always, I thank you for your contributions. All right, so before I take the slides down, let's focus on this too. Forgiveness is something you do for yourself. Okay, because remember, you, when you forgive, the other person doesn't even need to know, or may not ever know. um, so you're not forgiving for that person, you're forgiving for yourself. Why? Because that way you are open to receive the forgiveness yourself, and the love. So keep that in mind. And we'll talk about that. And then here's some things that just come up. And if you forgive someone, does that mean that someone does not have to be accountable for his mistakes? And I'm just going to put that out there for you guys to. All right. And then I just put this here. Uh, how do you forgive? So maybe you will have some answers for that.